Welcome back to Channel 5 News. I'm Dick Butkus, and this is my friend Tom Potamkin.
All right, correction. That's going to be the...
I'm Dick Butkus.
This is Tom Potamkin.
Tom Potamkin.
Okay. So, now, if you would like to formally introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hey, guys. Welcome back to Red Shadow Forge.
Hey, guys. Welcome to Red Shadow Forge. Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Too loud on it.
No, you're good.
Okay.
We're going to do a getting to know your blacksmith today. Even though, you guys should already know this guy because he's posted, 70s? How many videos?
A bunch.
A bunch.
A bunch.
That's an actual legal unit of measurement.
Yes.
But whenever you're ready.
Okay. Wait, what am I saying?
Your name.
No. I'm Dakota Bell of Red Shadow Forge, and... What the fuck?
This is Roof Shopping Cart! No. Okay,
Hey.
let's start with something simple. How old are you?
I am 28 years old.
Okay, that's all we need to know. Have a good night.
All right, thank you.
Where are you originally from?
I am from Illinois originally. I moved around a lot as a kid, but
Chicago.
No. There is a difference. I was born in Fairfield, Illinois, which does exist.
That's basically Kentucky.
I know.
Just kidding. I'm from further south than Fairfield. When did you first know you wanted to be a blacksmith, and what inspired you?
I first knew that I wanted to be a blacksmith when I learned about blacksmithing, to be honest. This was about 5 years ago, so I was, mid-20s, and I didn't know that blacksmithing still existed. I was completely oblivious. And Martin Coffey, we used to work together, and he brought up the idea that he had been wanting to start his own forging and make knives and hammers and things like that. And it kind of threw me off guard. I was like, what do you mean by make knives? Like with a machine and stuff? He's like, no, I want to forge them. And I was like, people still do that? I didn't know that was a real thing. I thought it kind of died out in like the pirate times, but no. Started watching videos and stuff, and I was like, wow, this looks really cool, and I decided to get into it. So Martin Coffey is the one who got me into it. He kind of sparked that interest.
Martin is also Dakota's business partner with Red Shadow Forge.
Yes, he is the man, usually not in camera. So there's some of the older videos where he's in them, and he'll be in the future videos, but currently he's still in the military, so it's kind of difficult. But
what was your first knife?
My first knife, I actually made 3 knives at the same time as my first knife. So there wasn't actually just one. I made 3 knives out of railroad spikes just to get some practice down and start developing my technique, which took a long time. When I started, I was hammering on these railroad spikes for like 4 hours before they actually got to somewhat of a knife-like shape. They were railroad spikes, so they weren't very high carbon steel, so I didn't worry about heat treating them at all. So after I forged them out to shape, I used a bench grinder with the stone wheels on it and just put a simple basic edge on it, and I used some hemp twine and wrapped around the handle. It wasn't even completely rust free because it had been sitting around for a while. So it was just a very rugged caveman-ish knife for all 3 of them. They were all uniquely shaped. They all had their differences, but I was super proud of them. Even though
by uniquely shaped, do you mean they were terrible?
That's yeah.
That's
essentially yeah.
It's a good way to church it up.
Yeah, pretty much.
What was your first good knife?
My first good knife, I think I gave to my friend Josh Vercelli. It was a guy that I served in the military with. We became best friends, and he was a big supporter of this as I got into it. From day one, I told him I'm gonna start making knives and stuff. He's like, that's awesome. So just huge supporter. He's always been a great friend, so I wanted to give him a knife, and I made him a knife that I actually did out of stock removal, which is different than forging. Stock removal is where you just draw out a shape or for me, I don't draw them out. I just kind of use my mind, and I delete material using a grinder and basically cut it into shape and just follow out the process from there, do the heat treating and all that stuff. It was a really good knife. It was about, I don't know, 8 or 9 inches long, and it had a really cool paper micarta handle on it with some nice texturing and stuff, which I had not done at that point. But it was a really sharp knife, really cool, shiny, good looking knife. And then I made a Kydex sheath with it, and his favorite color was lime green, so I used some lime green paracord in the sheath as well, so it was kind of cool.
And for those of you that don't speak knife guide, that means it was expensive. What was your favorite knife?
My favorite knife, I actually auctioned off, and it was bought, I think, for like $100, something like that. But it had a Kieranite handle on it. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's called Toxic Green, so it's got a really like lime green look to it, but it had this black swirl pattern inside the handle. Real nice, and I polished it up really shiny. It looked really cool, and it fit in your hand really neatly. And it was just a brand new style of knife. I've never seen one like it. It was very sharp, very cool, and I was really happy that actually a family member bought that knife at auction. Kristen McCluskey has that knife still, and she still posts pictures of it on the page all the time. So that makes me happy. Yeah, she uses it all the time. She loves it. She's cut watermelon with it. She's cut potatoes and seafood and all kinds of stuff with it. So she says it's still a great knife, still sharp and everything. So that makes me happy, you know, to see that I've given out a knife or sold a knife and the customer's really happy with it. You know, not only was she a family, but she's an honest customer. You know, she gave good feedback, and she continues to let me know how the product is, you know, holding up after a while. So
Right.
I like that.
What did you do before you started the forge?
I was in the Navy for 8 years. I actually started forging in 2017, I believe, like in the fall, October actually. So I was still in the military for the following year almost. So I started the last year that I was in the military. I was in the Navy, and I was on 2 different ships and then 1 shore command, and got to travel around, do a lot of stuff. But
In the Navy, right?
yes.
I just wanted to put it in there a third time,
Okay. Yeah, I was in the Navy.
just in case. Oh, 4 times.
Yeah, I was. It was in the Navy.
5.
In the military. In the Navy.
Okay. In the Navy, if you didn't catch that.
In the Navy.
How did you learn to forge?
I learned to forge after the first 6 months, because I'm not going to call it forging. But a lot of it was trial and error. You know, I would think about what I wanted the knife to look like, and then try to figure out what I had to do to make the knife look like the end result, which never worked when I first started. The first 6 months, if I forged a knife, it was not what I wanted to make initially. And if I tried to make a specific type of knife, it just turned into something completely different, which is how I ended up with so many different styles of knives. I don't have just one set style. I can make a fantasy blade. I can do a hunting kind of blade. I can do a chef knife kind of blade, just all kinds of stuff. Because after a while, I realized that it's a lot harder for me to tell the steel what to do. Sometimes the steel has to kind of tell me what to do. Granted, as I get better, and the more I do it, the more I can hammer it into the shape that I want. But to an extent, I mean, that steel is going to act how it wants to act, and it can kind of take a different direction than where you were initially heading. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. I end up with all kinds of different knives because of it. But like I said, a lot of it's trial by error. I've messed up a lot of knives. I've done really well on a lot of knives. But I also started reading books. I have a bunch of books from Barnes & Noble and Amazon, different things about blacksmithing, bladesmithing, and then I also started watching a lot of people on YouTube. Not a lot of people, but I've got like key people that I've watched over the years. Some of them aren't even bladesmiths. They just do knives as projects, but they do it really well. Walter Sorrells was one channel that I watched religiously when I first got into this, because he gave very good tips, and he's a very well-spoken guy. There's Black Bear Forge. I watched Alex Steele videos, which I still do. But he's not a bladesmith. He's just an everything kind of smith. He makes all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot I can learn from him. After a while, I started kind of stepping up my expectations with my own products because I feel like that helped me get better. So instead of saying, you know what, yeah, this is really good, it's perfect, done. There's no such thing as perfect. I think if you think you've made a perfect knife, you're not going to progress after that. So I kind of critique every single knife and move on from that, so that every knife I make gets better than the last and better than the last. It just keeps going. So over the last, I'll say 2 years, I've started watching a lot more specific content put out by master bladesmiths, which is where my ultimate goal is, to get to that master bladesmith certification. So I started following and watching people like Jason Knight, people like Kyle Royer, things like that, which they have their own YouTube channels and stuff. But I feel like for me to strive to be as good as I can be with this, I had to start changing my expectations and putting them on the levels of a master bladesmith. So no, I'm not there yet. No, my blades aren't master bladesmith quality, but the only way I'm going to get there is if I start holding them up to that standard every time. So it's been a learning process, and I've definitely learned a lot from Martin Coffey, who reads 50 times more than I do about this stuff. So he's always giving me tips and pointers and things like that. So there's all kinds of resources out there.
Yeah, I think it's always good to strive to want to do better.
Absolutely.
What have you made other than knives?
So I primarily make knives, but every once in a while I'll get a wild hair and I want to do something else. So I've done a dinner bell. I have a dinner bell for our house that I made out of rebar. I've made some hooks, some keychain leaves, not leaves, English. I've made a screwdriver, and it turned out really horrible. Unless you want to rotate your whole hand, it just wasn't straight. But I've made a fire poker, just little things. I haven't really done a whole lot of tool making. I did, the very first thing I made, other than those 3 knives that I started with, was a pair of rebar tongs. They did not work out. We'll say that. Didn't do a very good job. And I don't know, I guess I got intimidated by it, and I haven't done it since. It's just one of those things where I just get sidetracked and I just want to do a knife. So I need to get back into that. But I've got the steel to do hammers, and that's one thing that I really want to get into. I just haven't done it yet. But as much as I make knives, I also want to make hammers just as often. So that's probably one of the big things that I'm getting ready to jump into, is making hammers.
Where would you like to be at in 5 years as a blacksmith?
It's a good question. It's a good question in general. I mean, in 5 years as a blacksmith, I'd really like to have the business license for Red Shadow Forge and be selling to customers regularly, have a better work schedule and a more efficient routine to where I can get up in the morning, work out in the shop, and that's my job. I'd really like to make more knives, make more videos, make, all the social media posts, so I can keep all of you guys informed about this whole process. From day one when I started on those first 3 horrible knives, almost everything has been recorded and documented with pictures and things like that, because I'm not here to show you how to become a master bladesmith. I'm here to show you how I have made this journey through bladesmithing. So in 5 years, I'd really like to be at the point where I've got content regularly posting, on social media platforms. I've got knives regularly getting sent out for customers, orders coming in. I just really want to be up and running and efficient as a knife maker, and a content creator as well.
So assuming in 5 years you are where you want to be as a blacksmith, if there was one piece of advice that you could give to some young kid that's starting out, that wants to do what you do, and I mean he's just obsessed with your videos and your knives and the products that you make, if you could give them one piece of advice, what would that be?
Absolutely do not stop. That would be my biggest advice. And I would tell that to anybody. Even if it wasn't bladesmithing that you wanted to get into. If it's something that you're interested in, don't stop. You know, if you don't have an entrepreneur mindset, get one. Strive to do better every single time. Learn from your failures and don't let them stop you. There's been several times throughout the last 5 years where I worked so hard and I put so much time into a knife and something happens and it's ruined. And instantly, I'm defeated. You know, I don't know what to do. I'm like, you know, I just wasted, 60, 50, 70 hours on this one thing and now it's useless. You can't let that stop you. You will fail, guaranteed. Just like anything. If you want to be a Major League Baseball player, you're going to fail before you become a Major League Baseball player. Ask anyone. You have to keep going. Assess your failures like you would any other aspect of your life. Assess the failures, figure out what caused it to fail, and learn from it, and don't do the same thing again. I will say that I do not make the same mistake twice, bladesmithing. When I first started doing this, I'd say within the first year, it took me a while, a lot of knives, to actually remember the whole process and what order to do everything. I've actually tempered a knife before I hardened it, which is horrible. It's useless. So, after I did that, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. I've also done knives where I put a lot of work into them and I love the way they turn out. And then halfway through, when I'm getting ready to do the hardening, before I quench it in oil, I'll put the clay on for a hamon and I've put it on the wrong side. That's a big no-no as well. So, I mean, I've messed up a lot. I'd say every year I do this, I mess up less and less, which is a good sign. But I still don't let those little failures stop me. If I mess up and completely break a knife, or whatever the case may be, I'll start over and do the same thing again, without making the same mistakes. You always have to learn from your mistakes and keep going. Always strive to be better. That's what I do. That's why I keep doing this. No, my videos aren't the greatest videos in the world. No, my knives aren't the greatest knives in the world, but I will always strive to make them that way, even if they're not, because that's the only way you're going to get better. So if you start doing this, if you're thinking about doing this, start it. Just start doing something. You need something to hammer on, you need something to hammer with, and you need something as a hammer. I've seen guys use rocks. I'm not kidding. I've seen a video of a guy who uses a rock to forge things. I've seen a guy who uses a 25-pound dumbbell to forge his blades. All right, so there's resources out there you can look up. You can learn about steel. You can learn about, knife edge geometry. You can learn what handle materials work well on knives. There's all kinds of resources out there. And I'm hoping to add to those resources. I want to be someone that, if somebody is looking me up on YouTube or, any other platform, they can ask questions. I want to be able to teach what I have learned to anybody who's willing to learn it. So don't give up, don't stop, and just get started, keep going. That's my advice.
I think it's a pretty good piece of advice.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
This has been the news with Tom and Dick, and we'll see you in the next one. That's corny as hell. Thank you guys for watching. This was Getting to Know Your Blacksmith with Dakota Bell.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, guys.